Hi, I'm Paul Skeldon, one of the editors at Internet Retailing, and I'm here to talk about the 2015 Connected Commerce International Expansion Report that we've produced. I'm joined by Andy Hill from Electio, Anthony Letcher from SDL, who are the sponsors of the report, and the report's author, Liz Morrell. Liz, just talk us through, first of all, the sort of basis for the report.
The report is something we've done for the last 3 years. We looked at international expansion each year. And this year we wanted to look at where people's priorities have been in the last 12 months, where they were looking to for the next 12 months, the countries they were going into, the challenges and opportunities they faced. The report features an in-depth section where we case study what retailers are doing. So it's based on in-depth interviews with international retailers, directors and e-commerce directors from a range of businesses. So we've got a really nice mix of people that are kind of well on the international journey and those that are starting out as well.
Great stuff. And what's been the sort of biggest surprise from this year's findings for the report?
I think one thing I was quite surprised about was how many retailers were surprised. So, you turn around and ask them their best markets, for instance, and for some of them it's kind of obscure markets that you just wouldn't necessarily kind of naturally think about. They're not on that kind of priority list that you should do if you're doing international expansion. So I think it was the retailers that kind of looked properly at their business and understood kind of what worked and what didn't, and where kind of traffic was coming from that doesn't necessarily comply to kind of some sort of international strategy per se, but their customer, is identified there, and so therefore they've gone for that market. So I think that was the surprise, the fact that kind of the retailers were surprised sometimes by the opportunities that they saw.
Okay, and what are the sort of key themes, things like localisation and returns? I mean, are these issues that are affecting all retailers who are on this journey?
They are, and they are similar themes that have come up kind of year after year. Retailers are still struggling to get the delivery and returns parts of international, kind of more coherent and better managed. And on the localisation part, it's going more and more local. So whereas they might have just looked at language before, it's this idea that they've got, that's not enough. Just in my language isn't enough. It's got to go further into really kind of resonating with that customer in that market. And then kind of the impact of currency rates as well was quite a big concern this year. So those are the kind of three big things.
So Anthony, from SDL's point of view, sort of localisation is clearly an issue. What sort of things are particularly important about localisation that you'd get across to retailers?
Yeah, I think, number one, will your site actually perform? So, you have a very short amount of time to capture customers' attention. So, how long does your homepage take to download? Is all your imagery actually optimised for maybe a very different digital experience that a customer may have in a developing market as opposed to your home and domestic markets? Also, then you start thinking about, what type of imagery should be on there. But, there are some key technical constraints that need to be managed. Also, do you really understand the customer in the new market? Consumers are talking and tweeting the whole time about their experiences. Is that social intelligence actually being mined to glean insight about the new markets which people are thinking about going into? Most retailers only look at very simple sentiment analysis, and really they need to go beyond that to get proper understanding of those markets and the cultural context that they may use those products.
Okay, and Andy, this sort of idea of localisation and particularly sort of language, that extends to sort of the delivery process and everything. What are the key sort of things that retailers need to think about that, like sort of the documentation of boxes and the little things?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, upstream of delivery notes, it's important to choose the right service for the country as well. You see variances of preferred delivery services across the globe. For example, in Germany, it's preferable to deliver to a packet shop as opposed to delivering to a home. That's a simple mistake a retailer based in the UK could make and not offer their customers that service. And more we see in terms of customer satisfaction, it's important to localise your delivery note and your returns note to set a clear expectation and talk to them in their own language and make them feel as though it is a local process.
Great, and to stay with you, Andy, returns is clearly a big issue. I mean, it's a big issue for any retailer delivering things. What are the challenges around returns in an international market?
Predominantly cost is a big challenge for a retailer, and there are lots of great return solutions out there for retailers to manage their product from a global base back to the UK if that's where they're shipping from. However, most of those return solutions are for large-scale retailers, and there needs to be more of a solution for SME retailers or to large retailers and to bridge that gap. But so first and foremost, there are solutions out there. But from a retailer's perspective, they need to manage that cost because returns from international destinations can be very high. So they need to understand which partner can give them a breadth of service, not necessarily the fastest return, it could be a slow return at a lower cost, and help them to manage and reduce that cost. But also more and more retailers now need to think about keeping returns into the local country where the product is as well, rather than actually bringing it back across the globe. There are solutions developing now where you can centralise your return back into the country that you've shipped to and then dispatch the stock elsewhere from there as well.
Great. You mentioned costs, particularly around returns. Isn't the cost of doing all of this, particularly the stuff you were talking about, Anthony, about sort of keeping on top of the sort of social media and all that around brand, isn't it a sort of huge cost? Is this something that's purely the play for big retailers?
And ultimately, it does depend on the return on investment. I mean, I think there is a complete continuum which starts at language translation, depending on the market that you're looking to go into, purely sort of localised for that market. But, it's a very competitive marketplace, so unless you've got the actual intelligence of your data to accurately and relevantly propose offers to customers, and really that is all driven by data. So it's vital that organisations do get their heads around the data challenge, that when they're presenting offers to customers in new markets, that they are relevantly tailored for those consumers, because otherwise they simply will not take off the ground.
Great, okay. What about the sort of follow-up service? It's very easy to sort of get a few hits from Russia, start selling things to people in Russia, and then maybe even build this sort of following of Twitter. What do you do to sort of keep that relationship alive? That must be a real challenge for international retailers.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, very few retailers get the post-sale great anyway. Very often the post-sale means buy something else.
Yes.
And, whilst that can be great, what about having a dialogue with a customer saying, how was the product? Did it meet your expectations? Because equally, if you want to retain that customer loyalty, you need to spot and identify if there are any issues, or hopefully push those consumers to become your advocates. Because especially if you're trying to build brands in a new market, you want people to be really happy with your product. Equally, if you're a retailer which has got both a physical presence and a virtual presence in a new market, you really need to have a look at that customer. You need a single customer view, because there's very little point in sending me an offer for a pair of trousers which I bought online with a coordinating jacket if I've already bought that but physically in store. So again, it's all about that relevance.
That's a problem with all retailers.
It is. It's not just
regardless of
international.
borders. Yes.
Absolutely.
So Andy, from a sort of purely sort of delivery point of view, is there anything that sort of delivery can bring to this sort of follow-up process?
Well, quite often delivery is removed from the whole customer experience and the customer retention perspective. We see that in a number of retailers. It's getting better. We've made significant steps in recent years. But I guess the choice of services that are now available in lots of different countries as well, not just here in the UK, which is rich in choice of service. And there's opportunities there for retailers to select more and more choice of service, so lockers or pickup locations, as well as delivering to home as well. And carriers are investing and developing these services on a global basis, which is exciting.
So there is an opportunity there to see this rolled out everywhere, the new kind of ways of delivering.
Yeah, in mature e-commerce markets now, you're seeing global expansion from the global carrier base of their service offerings. So to make it consistent from country to country to country, it's an awful lot of work to do there to make it a truly global offering as well. But certainly there's a wide variety available to customers now, and that will only continue.
Great. We've heard sort of in some of the presentations and things around the report that one of the ways of picking an international market is not to necessarily just do a knee-jerk of that I'm getting some traffic from this country, let's go and do it. How should you pick what countries you should do business in, Anthony?
I think, obviously it depends on the business. I think if you can share a language, I think there is an advantage. I think it can often be simpler. I would still say though, be very careful about your terminology management. I mean, obviously, have you got the systems and processes that are in place to actually go into an expanding market? I think it can be absolutely vital to make sure that that relevancy of offer, because the way that consumers may use certain brands or products in one country can be very different from another. So, for example, from experience working on female personal care, female hair removal is very different, let's say, in the UK as opposed to India, where many women use it on their arms. So just the context of how products are used, that insight is absolutely needed and is critical.
Right, Andy, what sort of views have you got? What sort of things should people be taking into consideration when looking internationally? Is it a knee jerk that I'm going where my traffic's coming from, or what?
No. As Anthony touched on, language is really important, but equally you need to be able to service that customer as well. And there's a risk that a retailer may choose a destination that's not necessarily rich in delivery options as well in terms of the functionality. And so to make it easy, I'd recommend that people consider about the choice of service offering into that country as well. The different lanes into the country, different speeds of service, different ability to reach people at home, at work, or wherever they want it to be, which is becoming more and more the preferred option now. Where am I and what time can I have that delivery?
Great. Excellent. And just to wrap up, really, you probably touched on this already, but it'd be great to hear sort of one piece of advice from each of you for retailers watching this who are thinking of expanding internationally or ramping up what they do internationally. So Liz sadly gets the short straw by going last, but Andy, what would be your sort of key one piece of advice to retailers looking to do this?
Well, retaining the delivery theme, so my advice would be to spend time in working with the delivery partner and selecting your delivery partner, because all the good work and some of the things that Anthony talks about, all the good work that's done by a retailer up front in their web development, their localization, their product mix for a certain destination can be very quickly undone by a poor delivery experience and choosing the wrong carrier partner to reach that country and not offering a great returns option as well.
Right. Anthony?
I'd say make sense of your data. Really look at how customers are interacting with the site. What is the data actually telling you? Really try and get that single customer view, augment data so you can really give those tailored, targeted offers which are relevant in the moment to the consumer.
Great. Liz?
I think it would probably be to be open to the unobvious. So, for instance, with retailers that were surprised by kind of some of the strengths of custom in different markets, it's just kind of look for where your like-minded customer is, because it may not be kind of the norm, and then go for it, exploit it.
Right, well, fine words to finish on. Go for it, export it. So, Liz, Anthony, Andy, thank you very much.